raw, uncut, and unapologetic. Welcome to Men Talking Mindfulness with your hosts John McCaskill and Will Schneider. Here we focus on helping men and those with men in their lives solve some of life's complex challenges through understanding the practices of mindfulness and how they can help. Each episode is in an environment free of judgment and criticism, with a focus on authenticity and inner peace. Let's dig in.
I can tell you this now, but couldn't for most of my life. I learned how empty, isolating, and frustrating the roads of achievement, purpose, and fulfillment can be when I believe someone else has what I need. I learned and felt the hollowness that comes with social status when I believe I need that to validate my life. I learned that no amount of lives impacted will ever be enough if I don't feel that I am enough and that life is enough right now. Many other sayings like that from our guest's website, Matt Hogan's website. Welcome to Men Talking Mindfulness. I'm Jon McCaskill with my co-host Will Schneider. We work together on Men Talking Mindfulness to help to demystify an aspect of mindfulness. And this episode is one of our special Masculinity 2.0 episodes with our guest again, Matt Hogan. And today we'll be taking a look at the desire to always achieve more and how that can never fulfill or fill our proverbial cup. As for Matt and who he is, Matt has an endless fascination and devotion to the path of self-mastery and living an aligned life. From the lows of depression and attempted suicide to riding the highs of corporate climbing, to exiting corporate life and traveling the world, Matt's own personal journey of mastery, his life through a growing connection with his inner teacher and guide, has forged the foundation for what inspires and propels him. It's this journey that he in turn supports his clients with. Matt's clients include prominent as well as rising entrepreneurs, top-level executives, and change makers, supporting them to bring more of themselves into their work, their leadership style, and their relationships. This is accomplished through helping them recognize and trust their own inner guidance, finding both clarity and confidence in the decisions and plans they make. Matt continues each day to tap further into what it is to live his most aligned life, and that remains the North Star that guides him. Love all that. Welcome to the show, Matt. Love having you here, brother.
Hi, John. Hi, Will. I'm really looking forward to today. Like, you both are like, I can see you're pumped, and it's getting me pumped. So I'm really excited to start our conversation today.
Right on.
Well, we're glad you're here. Thanks for joining us. And just hey, our retreat to upstate New York. We're going to unplug in upstate New York, May 18th to the 21st. So we still have some spots left. We're going to move, breathe, and get mindful over this 4-day and 3-night immersive experience that includes a 4-week integration program, so you can take all the wonderful things you're going to learn in this retreat and weave them into your life. And right now, until March 18th, where you can save $200 if you sign up before March 18th, and to do all this and learn a little bit more. And here's some great testimonials from some of our past retreat students. You can head to mentalkingmindfulness.com/retreat. Again, that's mentalkingmindfulness.com/retreat. Sign up and grab your spot. And hey, thanks for going to our YouTube, checking us out over there, and subscribing to YouTube. And you can easily do that by going to YouTube or checking out youtube.com/@mentalkingmindfulness. So thanks for joining us over there. It's another way that we love to connect and create, have a more visual presence out there in the world. So let's jump in.
Yeah. So again, Matt, welcome to the show. We're excited to get in this conversation and kind of talk about your desire to climb that corporate ladder, where you were, and what that did to your mind. And we mentioned some major turning points in your life. One specifically being the attempted suicide, and you even in your website you said, put a bullet in your brain, and we're going to talk about that. You also talk about receiving several messages as you're experiencing these turning points in your life, and definitely want to talk about that. But can you tell us? Let's kind of lay the foundation for the audience. Like, what was the life that you were living before these turning points, and then how did that all lead to one, I guess the first turning point, you're wanting to take your life, and then let's get into the other turning points next.
I'll lay out kind of the multiple turning points and then build a bridge. The first most prominent turning point was the night I put a bullet in my head in 2004, when life felt scarier to be alive than to be dead. A part of that turning point was having to relearn to walk again when they told me I may never walk again. Fast forward, there's my time going through university and then into corporate. And a couple turning points during that time period was when my sister was killed. And then not too long after that, my fiance left me. And then another turning point was the actual time when I realized it was time for me to leave corporate. And then not too long after that, I left the US for a year. So there's quite a few turning points. All of them have a very big, significant impact on my life. But it all was born first out of the night I shot myself. And I was at a place where it was so hard to be in my own mind, to be in my own body, that the thought of death was more inviting than the thought to live another day. I had no way of envisioning a positive future for myself. I didn't even know how to perceive a better tomorrow. There was no part of me that felt like I could actually change anything because I felt fucking powerless. And that was why I tried to take my life. And it wasn't for lack of effort that I survived. I remember that night, that bullet going in my brain vividly and feeling it burn my brain.
Wow.
And then me falling to the ground and going unconscious. And then the next thing I heard was a voice inside of myself that I had never heard before. And a crystal clear, crisp, confident, firm voice that I had never heard in my life from what I was used to hearing up here. And it says, "You are not to die today." And I woke up. I came out of being blacked out and had the energy like a fire running through me to get up, run up the stairs from the basement I was in, and actually my girlfriend at the time, who was there, had called a paramedic, and I was able to physically take myself out to the paramedic.
This is after you put a bullet in your head.
This is a bullet in my head, my brain hemorrhaging, and me vomiting all at the same time. Like I'm vomiting and hemorrhaging, and I'm able to actually get myself to this ambulance.
Wow.
Wow. You mentioned when you first talked about this, it's like what was so scary for you leading up to this moment? You kind of talked. I just like to get in your head a little bit, if you can, if you'd like to willing to share, like what was so scary that led you to this action?
I was at the point, I was 18. I had barely finished high school. And I was at this point where I was seeing that the life that I was set up for, based on what I was seeing was the norm from where my origins were, there was no way in hell that I could ever see myself being happy there. And at the same time, I didn't see that I had the wherewithal, the capacity, the skills, the drive, anything to move beyond my beginnings. And so when I was faced with either stay here and live this life that I see as miserable and stuck, or sit here and face the reality I perceived at the time that I was powerless and couldn't do anything, I chose the only way out that felt like something I had control of, and that was staying alive or not.
And then you wake up from your coma, and you're told now that you're probably never going to be able to walk again. And how does that sit with you?
I remember coming to, and one of the first I come to, and just to give a visual, half my head is shaved. So you imagine all the hair I have now, half of it's gone. And on the side that's gone, there's staples going around my head where they had to remove part of my skull to actually try to take the bullet out, and they couldn't. And so
is it still in there?
It's still there. They cleaned out some of the fragments, but the skull fragments, but the bullet is lodged on the other side from where it went in.
Holy shit.
And that doesn't fuck with you at all? I mean, that doesn't mess with you?
As far as I know, no. I continuously somehow do better and better in my life. So
there you go.
It hasn't affected me yet that I'm aware of, other than inspiring me. That's all it's got.
Let's just a quick disclaimer to our audience: don't go and do this so that you get inspired. Right?
This isn't an enhancement.
Matt's walked this road before for us, so we don't have to.
Yeah. And you know, that's the core of a lot of my work. It's been the past 20 years, like condensing down what it is to find that place in ourselves where we can be self-guided and really own our life, so to speak. And I wouldn't wish this on anyone, but I wouldn't take it back for myself personally because it ignited my life. It saved my life. So I wake up and I'm kind of coherent. I've got staples in my head. I woke up with left eye neglect, which means I couldn't actually see. If you imagine old school clocks in the schools where the numbers are on the left side and the numbers on the right side, I had left eye neglect and I couldn't see anything on the left. And so I was seeing half of things. And that started to wear off, but they told me you may never walk again. And I remember the most defining moment of being in that wheelchair was I was being pushed down the hallway to go outside and smoke a cigarette. I smoked at the time. And I remember my right foot falling off the wheelchair and dangling and getting caught beneath the wheelchair because I couldn't feel anything. And then I get put outside and I'm sitting there smoking a cigarette, and it finally truly hit me that me sitting there in that wheelchair in that hospital that night, for the first time ever, that no one put me there other than myself.
Mm.
So all the time that I had spent blaming everybody for my fucking problems, bitching and complaining about myself, all of that stopped long enough for me to just go, I did this. And when it really hit me in the gut, I cried those big old crocodile tears. And I remember it actually soaking out the cigarette, going down soaking my hospital gown. And it was in the middle of that breakdown that I heard that same voice go again, you are not meant to live this way. And then I felt this physical, visceral light switch flipping me, like a fire just pour through my body. And for the first time in my life, in that moment, it felt possible to have a good future. This was the moment that my drive for achievement, my drive to succeed, my drive to rise up and overcome, all of that was born from that moment. And it was actually in that moment that I also decided my father's birthday was coming up within 2 weeks of this date, that moment. And I made the decision, I'm going to walk for him on his birthday.
Wow.
I did. I took my first real steps again on his birthday, and we both collapsed into tears.
Oh, I bet. You know, as a father myself, I've got 3 young kids. And if any of them were in the situation that you were in, and then 1, they lived through that, and then 2, they were able to gain some mobility back. I imagine you guys were, you know, big balls of tears, just tons of tears all over. The emotions. Now you touched on something there that kind of started you on the path towards achievement and desire to continually grow, and I think you frame it as the intellect journey on your website. How did that journey go for you?
Well, I call it the journey of the intellect because for the majority of my 20s, pretty much all my 20s, it was a journey of I was hungry for information. I was hungry to know. I was hungry to learn. I barely finished high school, and it was an alternative school. I actually was kicked out of the normal high school in 9th grade, like very quickly. And this journey was for me just about developing the mental acuity and the skill sets to allow me to build a life. And so that took me into university, and after my first degree, which was a technical degree, I built up enough confidence in myself because I was able to graduate with honors and actually receive nearly a full ride to a university beyond that I went for a second degree in computer electronics. And all through this, I'm building momentum and confidence in myself because I'm like, oh, look, I got these good grades, something I never did before. Graduating with honors, something I never did before. Getting a full ride, all these things, these achievements that were felt amazing because I'd never experienced anything like that. And that perpetuated me, or momentum carried me through college and into my corporate work. And I first started out with AT&T in a really good role right out of college. I moved to Atlanta for it, but within the first 3 months, I couldn't stand the culture. I couldn't stand wearing a suit and tie every day. I like to look nice, but I don't like wearing a suit and tie every day.
Amen.
And so I have this job that most people would like. Well, most people did tell me I was an idiot for leaving. And after 3 months, I'm like, I can't do this. And I went into my boss's office and quit on the spot, and then moved back across the country and applied for jobs. And 2 weeks in, got an opportunity to support Google as they started a startup in Kansas City, Missouri. And that began a huge journey of the intellect and skill sets for me when I spent the better part of a decade building it from the ground up, a team of 4 up to a team of 100 people around the United States, from a program of 200,000 to 15 million during my time there, and started out as an individual contributor and grew to a director. So I was promoted 7 times over a course of 4.5 years. And so there was this insatiable hunger to grow. But here's where it gets kind of messy and nuanced, is part of it was because I was trying to validate my own worth. Part of it was because I really wanted to show to the world and myself through my actions in the world that I'm significant. I mean something. I'm not fucking worthless.
Mm-hmm.
But the nuance is, it's not black and white. It's not all of that. There's also the part of me that's very real and intrinsic to who I am. I love to create. I like to build things. I'm a very enthusiastic person. So there was a lot of what I would call the real me mixed up in that stuff that was also about trying to fill a hole that couldn't be filled through what we might call hedonistic or external means.
Right. Yeah, it's funny. This morning, well, let me back up a little bit. So I'm a big proponent of continuing mental health, mental maintenance, and I'm seeing a counselor myself, and I continue to see a counselor. I have for years, and I will always see one. And one of the things that we're working on right now is some healing of my inner child. Right. I'm sure many of those listening will have heard that before, if they've done any type of mental health support or counseling. And I was meditating on that this morning, and as I'm meditating, this memory of me back in first grade pops up. I don't know if you may be too young for this, Matt. Will, you may remember this. If you remember the Book It program, like Pizza Hut used to have this program, like if you read a certain number of books, you would get like a certain number of stars on your badge, and then if you got a certain number of stars, then you could get a free personal pan pizza. And I remember reading a lot in first and second grade just so that I could get those pizzas. And then what I learned from that was hard work. Hard work led to some type of reward. And then that reward was also not just the pizza, but some recognition. Like my teacher was like, "Hey, good job, John." And then my parents were like, "Oh, good, great. You read up another book. Here, let's go get another pizza. Good job, John." So this recognition, now I started to feel like I was being seen, quote unquote. And then being seen made me feel valuable. And so, the long drawn out equation, if you take out all the middle of it, is like hard work makes you feel valuable in right. society. And I've definitely been there. Even I'm guilty of it. Even to this day, sometimes I'll fall prey to that and be like, "Hey, you know what? I'm going to get this promotion. I'm going to get this award or reward, and then I'll be seen as valuable in everyone else's eyes." But in your mind, you had that director role, and you achieved that director role, and you thought, "Hey, once I achieve this, I'm going to arrive," quote unquote. And now you get there, and now how do you feel?
The balloons came from the ceiling, and life was perfect, and I retired on an island. Eating deep dish pizza because I love the Pizza Hut.
There you go.
Thank you for those memories. I really appreciate that. I remember when I had spearheaded a large RFP process for a big line of business, and we won the business over a 9-month contractual negotiation and planning and implementation, etc. And I remember I'm like, this is going to be what solidifies this role that I have been seeking since I started. And I remember when I got it, I was excited at first. It was kind of that feeling of like, I knew it was coming. I'm like, yeah, I validated myself enough through enough promotions already. I was like, it's coming. I got this.
Yep.
And then I got there, and as I started to settle in the role, I started to notice there weren't any balloons falling from the sky. I started to actually notice that, oh, wait, I've been after this, and what I've been doing this entire time is the moment that I arrive to one accomplishment, I don't even stop to really feel and celebrate it before I'm like, okay, I'm senior manager. Now I'm going for director. Like when I moved into my senior manager role before director, I remember when I got it, I think I was happy for all of 5 minutes. And then 5 minutes later, I'm like, all right, now how do I get to the director role? And the whole next year was that.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I'm just constantly chasing the I'll be happy when syndrome, which is bullshit.
Yeah.
And then it was really hard for me to face. And I'll be honest, it took me, I was in denial for a bit, to be honest, before I was willing to admit it.
Yeah, I learned a while ago this whole idea of be, do, have, do, be. Right. Most of us live these lives where if I have, all these different things, I have like a great job title that'll come with some money. Then I'll collect a bunch of things around that job title. Then I'll be happy. Right. So we kind of really tie ourselves to extrinsic motivators, right? Status, money, whatever else that kind of idea of success and what that, I think it's what I love what you're saying here, Matt, is like what it looks like. And, you're always like looking for that external and validation to fill that, internal void, if you will. But living more of a life on purpose and a life in passion, that puts us in the place. Well, if I'm happy, so therefore I'm happy with when I wake up and the work that I'm doing, then I can basically have anything I want. It's just, and have you like, so you kind of, you flipped into that be, do, have instead of have, do, be. And I just wanted to put that out there because there's a big difference between like intrinsic motivators and extrinsic motivators. And if we're motivated on the inside because of something that we resonate deeply, probably, that voice that we're tapping into when you're at the hospital and right at the very moment of your accident, I feel is part of that, that deeper heart voice of yourself. And I think some sort of universal divine intelligence that is there waiting for us to arrive or waiting us to fall down and can pick us up when it needs to. I just wanted to put that in the conversation because it's like I'm hearing this, and I was that, when I started out, when I got out of college, like I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. I had a degree in biology. I went and worked at some pharmaceutical company, and I liked the people I was working with. Like the work I was doing wasn't satisfying, but at that time in my life, it was just, I kind of worked for my weekends, and the money I made was to like have cars and go have some fun. But every, 40 hours or more a week, Monday through Friday, I was just like, what the fuck am I doing? And then, I got, instead of, I didn't put a bullet in my head, but I had my heart broken and everything started to change. Yeah. And, and it's like, it's those big pivotal moments that I think a lot of us, or hopefully, most of us will have if we're not feeling very good in what we're doing right now, because that's that wake up call that I think we hear so much about.
I love that you brought in be, do, have. I want to bring in something with that if you guys are open to it.
Absolutely.
So one is I love the be, do, have, and I want to get into that a bit with you guys. And then I want to also just bring in something that's so important for us as men. And I think because a lot of us have brilliant minds, our brilliant minds will tell us something is this way or that way, and we don't know where the nuance is. And it's the nuance that helps us really, really go into the nitty gritty of what it is to live, what it is to open and expand and live a successful, full life. And I love why you brought in be, do, have, because, for me, there was a big part after shooting myself that was about the being. Like, I want to go out and be this, but there was still a lot of the do and the have in there too. And there were pivotal moments where one was more prominent than the other. But what I see so often, and I think is more common case, because not everyone's walking around with a bullet in their head, and I'm really glad that's the case, is that, you know, a lot of people really do start with that. It's like, what do I have? Like, oh, I went to school, I got this job that pays well, I can have things I like. I got the nice car, I can go out drinking on the weekends, I can, you know, afford a nice date, whatever our motivators are financially around the having. But then we get to that point where it is kind of feeling empty, and there's a part of us that starts to, and this was a transition point for me in a major way in 2017 after my fiance left me. It really started to become less about what I have, because I had everything. I had the nice house, I had the partner, I had the car, I had the great corporate job, and I was fucking miserable. And so, and then when she left me, and I'm sitting and crying alone in our kitchen on the floor going, I had everything, now I feel like I have nothing. And then I realized that I wasn't even happy when I had everything. That's when it started to shift more and more to the work I do. And then it started like, well, I want to do work that's meaningful, and that poured me into life purpose and all those things. But to come back to the distinction of nuance, I wasn't all of that at one time, meaning that like I have personally experienced, and see, we get so caught in, we're like this mono personality. There's just a fixed personality, rather than there's a bunch of parts of our personality that move at different paces and speeds and different perceptions of the world. So part of me is still operating in that moment where I'm crying in the floor. Part of me is operating from this new emerging space of going, oh, well, actually what's more important to me is the work that I do and the impact I'm having in the world. But there's still a lot of parts of me that go, but I need a really nice car if I'm ever going to have love, or I need to have a lot of money if I can be happy. And so there's parts of me moving over in this direction to the do, but there's parts of me still lingering in the have. And it's really important to recognize that nuance, because we don't move all at one time, most often.
Right.
Yeah.
It reminds me of man, I'm just going to sound like a big time foodie, because I just talked about Pizza Hut, and now I'm going to talk about Jimmy John's.
Foodie John. Like, I don't even know what Jimmy John's is.
Jimmy John's is a
Louisiana thing or what?
No, man, it's a sub shop, and they give free smells. But anyway, inside Jimmy John's, they've always got these little signs up with little I don't know, one-liner quotes and everything. And one in particular stuck out in my mind. It said, you know, the gap between more and enough never closes. So unless we really take a step back and are intentional about realizing a lot of what is enough is inside us. And I know that's what you talk about, is having your inner teacher, Matt. Can you talk about, like, once you realized that after you lost your fiance and you thought that you had everything and you were happy, or rather you weren't happy even when you did have everything, how you kind of get in touch with that inner teacher and what you have started to learn and now teach to others?
I want to flash back to that day I was sitting on the sorry, I had an image of Jimmy John's gargantuan. I'm getting hungry. So I know where I'm going after this.
Yeah, same.
I'm sitting on the kitchen floor, on this wooden floor. So you imagine it's kind of light colored wood in a like rustic decorated kitchen, and in the middle of Kansas City, Missouri. And up to that point, I had my corporate job, and I was, you know, living the dream. You know, in so many ways. I had the good job, the good role. I built a big team. I was respected by my team. I had a good reputation in the organization. I was making money. I had the partner, the house, the dogs, all that. And then she left me for good reasons. And I'm sitting there watching myself crumble on this floor going, what the fuck just happened? And I heard that same voice that spoke to me that night I shot myself and that night in the hospital. And it was that same voice that said, this is what you needed. Now it's time for you to really grow and grow up. And much of that I came to find out over the past 7 years, almost 7 years now, has really been what took me into a deep dive of what I would call my emotional, physical, and spiritual part of my life. And that's where I began with therapy and trauma work, a lot of trauma work, because of things that had happened early in my life. And obviously, shooting yourself isn't something that your system just forgets.
Yeah.
And so it really opened up the door to that much deeper work, as well as moving me further and further away from about being around what I have, being more about the work that I do and who I am and how I experience my own self-concept of being alive. Because if I put very frankly, the message that drove me unconsciously for much of my life until I would say these past 3 years was, you're a worthless piece of shit and you're never going to amount to anything. That was actually the unconscious message that was driving so much of my behavior, and why, like, even though I would have spurts of and moments of like elation, like I got the role, I got the partner, I got the car, or whatever it is, but not very long after that, I'd be feeling like I'm getting dragged back down to the pits of hell. I'm feeling numb. I'm feeling discontent. I'm getting defensive. I'm getting bitter. And life just doesn't feel that same aliveness isn't there anymore. And, you know, I fast forward, I had that voice and that ignited a fire for me again. But I want to fast forward to a moment that I really started to understand this inner teacher conversation. Because when that day on the floor, while I heard it and I knew it was that similar voice from when I was younger, I still hadn't fully connected the dots in my life yet. There was just a bunch of years that had passed and a bunch of events. So a lot of this came in hindsight and the continued experience and exposure. Fast forward to April 2018, and I'm in my director role. This is at the point where I'm really focused on this transition to the work that I do, and parts of it's around who I am in the world, but a lot of it's about the work. And I felt really, really stuck. I'm still in my director role. I'm still in corporate. And to be honest, I was feeling resentful and bitter for where I was at. I'm a year out from my separation. I had moved to Austin, Texas, trying to shake things up, thinking moving across the country is going to make me feel better. But yet, wherever you go, there you are.
There you go. John Cabot's in.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there wanting to shake things up. And one of the things I had realized was, throughout the years, I had always had a desire to really travel. I had a chance to study abroad for 6 months in New Zealand when I was in college, but I turned it down and then blamed my partner for me not going, even though, let's be honest, it was me. I said no. But all that was there. And I said, I need to shake things up because I'm stuck. I'm miserable. And just that feeling of the happiness and aliveness that my career once brought me is gone. I don't have a relationship to lean towards anymore. And there I am. This one golden thread, which is my career that I leaned on for my happiness, isn't doing it anymore. So I had to do something because I had nothing in the external world that was imposing my happiness. And so what I do, I put 5 countries in a hat. I drew the Philippines, and then I booked a month-long trip to the Philippines that night.
Nice.
And told the VP that I reported into the next day my plan. Said, oh, by the way, I'm going to be gone for a month. Here's the out-of-office plan for my team of like 85 to 100. And then I was off. And
how did your boss receive that? Was he jealous? Huh? How did your boss receive that message?
He actually, first he goes, I wish you would have let me known that you were going to do this a little bit sooner. And I said,
well, okay, I can see that answer.
he goes, this is a pretty solid out-of-office plan, so have fun.
Oh, fucking okay.
I had a good, and that was the benefit of really, I poured myself into my work. I put in a lot of integrity of being a top-notch employee and really cultivating a strong team. And I do contribute a lot of his openness, one, to his own experience as a leader, but two, just how much passion and energy I poured into us doing really well as a business. But beyond that, when I left, the most defining moment for me, beyond just the utter shift in environment that I had never experienced before, in a place where I'd never left the country and heard of a language beyond English and like been immersed in the environment. And I come out of the Cebu City Airport after being awake for 30 some hours on a plane ride, multiple plane rides.
Been to Cebu.
Yeah.
Yep.
And the sights, the smells, the sounds, and me being exhausted and in this brand new environment was overwhelming, to say the least. And it was nerve-wracking, to say the least, to find my way to my Airbnb that I booked as I'm going through customs. And I didn't book anything in advance.
Only way to travel, man. Only way to travel.
You'll notice a pattern with me if you keep listening. And I finally make my way to the first place, and this environment is challenging so many core beliefs I have about what it means to be alive, what it means to be a citizen, what it means to be human ethics, like all kinds of things. Fast forward a couple days, and my system's still in an odd state. But I'm at a picnic table sitting outside with a notebook, like I have right here in front of me, same color notebook. I've stuck with them ever since this experience, just for note. And all the stuff's coming up of like, okay, I'm here for a month, and then what? Like I go back and then just the same old, and like all these thoughts are coming up, like my mind is racing. If anyone here can relate to that, I've got like story on story on story on running about, but you need to stay, but you need to go, but it means this, and what about money? And like, it was just so much, it was overwhelming. And fortunately, since my fiance had left me, I had learned that writing was a very useful tool for me to get everything going on in here, out here, and actually allow me to calm myself a bit and not get so worked up. And I was taking that and with spades, and I was writing. I filled up like half a notebook, all the emotions, all the thoughts, even the parts of me that were still upset about her leaving, and all the parts of me that were still angry that I was feeling stuck, and the parts of me that were questioning, like, what am I even doing? And it was all of this just pouring on paper and pouring and pouring and pouring and pouring. And then it was like I finally got it all out. And I got to two core realizations. And when each one of them came through for me, it hit me with the amount of significance and weight that those messages did the night I shot myself, the night I was in that wheelchair, and the day that I was sitting on the kitchen floor when my fiance left. And the first one was, this corporate work has served you so well to become the man you are. You have learned so much. You've learned how to build a life for yourself and support yourself, something you never knew how to do before, never thought you could. And I'm sobbing and crying, connecting to all the gifts that were involved with this time and this stint in corporate. And like, I just felt it so deeply, like, wow, this has been amazing. And then the second one came out as if like a ... And it says, and it's time to let it go.
Wow.
And that one hit me even harder, because for a moment, my mind was silent. It was crystal clear that these were absolute truths in my life. I could feel no amount of doubt, no amount of arguments, no mental chatter, nothing. It was like, this is it. And then 10 minutes later, my mind started going, but what about this? And what about this? And what about that?
Always.
But the coming back to learning to listen to that inner teacher, one of the biggest things I support people with is, and what I've been having to do is, first, you got to get everything out of the way and get present to all the stuff that's going on inside you. Are you getting lost in your thoughts? Are you getting lost in your physical sensations? Because if there's a lot going on there, it's going to be unlikely that you can truly get to that crystal clear, subtle voice of your own inner guidance.
Yeah, I think that's one thing, John, we don't talk about enough sometimes. It's just that being a practice itself. Getting in touch with the chaos and the craziness of your mind, and like the stories that you continually are telling yourselves, and what those stories also, based on attaching ourselves to our those thoughts, like what emotions and actions are they driving on a regular basis. And that could be a great way for anybody that's listening that like wants to make change, that's kind of feeling that that void from the inside and has all of like the external what success looks like, but feels empty again on the inside. It's like that could be a great place to start. And it's funny, Matt, you bring up, it's like, of course, like right as soon as you have that clarity, all of the, all that clarity of like, I'm moving in this direction. This is so crystal clear. It's connected to something deeper and more meaningful. My inner teacher, my heart, right? This voice that keeps like just somewhere from some place. It's just pushing me forward into a life that is truly and authentically mine. And then sure enough, like minutes later, it's like, what about this? What about this? What about this? What are responsibilities and duties? And what is it your parents going to think? Or, your whatever else going to happen. It just goes on and on and on and on and on. And it's like, no. And I think there's also, I've felt it. I'm sure you're feeling it, Matt. Jon, I'm sure you felt it as well. When you tap into your passion, your significance, like what your contribution, or at least just the inkling of what your contribution, the legacy can be for this world. As soon as you get on that ride and take that first step, it's amazing the doors and the synchronicities that begin to happen on a regular basis. Things just start to come, money starts coming your way, opportunities, phone calls, emails, opportunities, and it's like that's I feel part of that inner teacher as well. I mean, the inner teacher somehow just boom. It just starts putting stuff in front of you. And then if you're aware enough and not scared to kind of greet whatever that opportunity is in that moment, you just go one more step further, and another step further, and another step further. And there's a lot of trust. I was walking down the street today, and I'm in like an interesting start to the year. Like lots of this year is looking great with a lot of the work that Jon and I are doing and things that are coming up. But like right now, I'm in a bit of like a little famine as far as like my regular business. It's like, it's not doing great, but it's not a big deal. A part of me is like, what the fuck, man? Like, it's been a couple weeks and things haven't been so great. And a part of me is like, no, dude, trust is all good. And it's like, comes back again. It's like, dude, but like, look at your bank account. Look at this, like, and all these like little voices like, no, it's all good. It's all good. Just stay the course. Don't listen. But it's so hard to tune out that voice, So I just want to put that in there, but because that's a great practice, Matt, that you're talking about, getting in touch with that voices and not just getting in touch and just being with them in your mind, getting them out on paper, talking to them with a therapist that you talked about, or talking to them about somebody that can actually maybe help you, or at least is a good listener.
Right. Something I loved about listening to your show is you guys are really good at grounding these things in practical terms. And I'd like to ground this a little bit more.
Let's do it.
The last episode I was listening to was Crucial Conversations, and it's very rightly so, because what I'm about to bring in
Jon
is
right
very
there.
relevant to that. So one of the framings that I like to use is take the crucial conversations that a lot of us are adept at or are growing to be adept at and turn it in yourself. Have a crucial conversation with yourself. And that's actually what I tell my clients. I'm like, great, I'm hearing you tell me this. That's great. You're talking to me. I want you to turn towards yourself and you tell me what conversation you need to have with you.
How did we miss that on our show, Will? How did we miss that? Like, that would have been such a great angle to have taken on that episode.
Jon,
damn it, Matt. We should have had you before.
It was your idea, Jon. That's your responsibility. You fucked up.
Totally. It's 100% my fault. But yeah, I mean, I love that. Taking that crucial conversation and how you prepare. Like in the episode about crucial conversations, we talk about why we suck at crucial conversations. Literally, we see that as a threat. For those who may have missed it, we see that crucial conversation as a threat. Our body perceives it as that, and we start getting ready for a fight. And so the blood goes to our extremities, goes away from our brains. Well, the same thing happens, I'm sure, internally when we have those crucial conversations, quote unquote, with ourselves, and we're not prepared for them. Then we start thinking irrationally and start thinking, with our limbic brain, and start seeing things and feeling things differently than we would have if we had actually prepared for that crucial conversation with ourselves. So I love seeing that, and then understanding that inner voice that pops up all the time. A lot of what he or she has to say is valid, but then a lot of it is a bunch of crap too. And if we don't. It's totally programming, 100%. And I just want to come back real quick.
I need to add a nuance to that.
Yeah, please.
First I'll preface with, we don't need to believe everything that our mind says. I definitely am a proponent for don't believe everything that brain tells you is reality.
Right.
However, going back to what I said about there being parts of ourselves versus just one whole personality,
Yeah.
a lot of times those parts have something to teach us. And it doesn't mean that it's there to teach you that, oh, if you leave your company and start a business for your own, you're going to fail, die, live under a bridge. That's not what necessarily the lessons are. But what, as if anyone listening is a leader in an organization, they're a parent, they're a coach, or they're just really a curious person, turn your curiosity towards that inner voice that likes to bash you, that likes to beat you with the 2x4, and say, what's this really about? What are you scared of? What do you need? What are you trying to teach me? Because most often we'll find, one, the thing it's saying is not actually the reality of what it's going on.
Right.
Two, we'll start to trace it back to actually something that we need to learn or see that helps us move forward with a wider lens of awareness and parameters.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We
Yeah,
just
a lot
had
of time.
Elaine Smookler on, and she was saying about on Bending a Broken Heart, and she was talking about fact checking your thoughts.
Mm.
It's like, have a thought and be like, is that really true? Like, is there any evidence in my reality, in like all the experience I've had that actually support that particular thought? So yeah.
And a lot of those thoughts that we have are driven by fear, right? I would say most of them are driven by fear. Those negative thoughts, I'm a dad with 3 young kids. I've got a 5-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 1-year-old. So Disney movies are always on, or whatever they are. And one in Bob the Builder, train YouTube. Anyway, there's one in particular that just reminds me of. Luca is this Disney movie where there's sea monsters that are able to come up and live amongst the human beings, and it's a fun one. And there's one that sea monster that's a little out there, and he's always doing things that are adventurous and taking risks. And he's trying to convince this other sea monster to take a risk. And he's like, okay, you ready to ride this bike down the hill? And he's like, not in a million years. That's not going to happen. He's like, okay, you've got a Bruno in your mind. He's like, Bruno, what are you talking about? He's like, it's that voice that's continually telling you not to take a risk. Don't do this. Don't do that. Don't put this in your mouth. And he's like, you got to tell Bruno, silencio, Bruno. and he's like, all right, can you hear him now? He's like, no, I can't hear him. I can't hear him anymore. I can only hear you. And he silences this Bruno. And I just love that part of that movie. But it's, obviously going outside of the movie, how many of us have that internal Bruno, quote unquote, that is keeping us from taking these leaps of faith it's keeping us from doing it because we're scared. And it's okay to be scared. It's, Will, you mentioned not being scared. I think it's okay to be scared, but then being scared and doing it anyway. That's where courage comes in, right? Yeah. And taking those leaps of faith. Will, I know you're taking those leaps of faith. I've seen it happen. Will, I think you've seen me do it. I know when we met, I was still in the military, and I was talking about what I was going to do afterwards, and I was looking at the corporate jobs, and I was speaking with people in corporate America. And when I told them finally that I was going to be teaching mindfulness, they're like, there's no money in that. Well, there we go. That's not why I'm doing it. If I wanted to be a millionaire, I probably would not have been a Navy SEAL. So anyhow, it's Silencio Bruno coming back. We've got to shut that inner voice down and realize that it's quite often fear that is keeping us from doing what is going to fulfill us, that's going to complete us, fill that proverbial inner cup.
I'm curious. There's something I really want to jump in with, and I'm curious if you guys are open to it.
Let's do it.
Go for it, yeah.
One, something I was just thinking about that came to me was for us men, who here, well, there's 3 of us that can raise our hand physically here, and who here listening has ever been told that they get caught in their head too much?
No, yeah, all the time. All the time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I bring that up because the statement of fear, feel the fear and do it anyways. There is validity in that in terms of don't let fear control your life. However, coming back to that statement of there being nuance, one of the things that we do as men is we get so caught in our head about things that a lot of what helps us come to know our inner teacher is through becoming embodied. And to use that in a more nuanced language, it's about actually being connected with our bodies, being connected with our sensations, being connected with what feels good, what feels bad. Who here has ever, and they don't have to raise, you don't have to raise your hand if you want. Who here has ever had sex and been caught in their head way too damn much because they can't feel anything?
No, definitely not.
Yeah.
Now you're
Okay. Well, I need to call you after this and ask you what you're doing.
I'm not going to have my wife listen to this episode.
But the example that being is a lot of us men can relate to that being in the bedroom with someone we really want to be present with, but we're in our head instead of actually present with our own experience in our body.
Mm-hmm.
And I take that into this conversation about feel the fear and do it anyways. Is you may feel the fear, but are you actually present with the fear, or are you just pushing your way through it because all you've ever been taught is just to bull your way through like a freaking china shop? And one of the things that can be freeing is the more we become connected with our bodies and our sensations, like fear, for example, being able to watch it come up, actually sit and feel it until it dissipates or moves or shifts, and then taking the action can actually, over time, start to relinquish the nervous system's capacity to hold on to that, to where at some point, some things that did scare you don't anymore. And it also becomes something that when you do step into something big, it doesn't feel like you're having to push your way through it because you've created a new connection with your body. Guess what? Creating that connection with your body will help you have better sex too.
Yeah.
Yes, I love it. And Will and I have had episodes on mindfulness and sex. We had a sexpert come in to talk about it, and that is something that we definitely all do, men and women alike. We get into our own heads, and then we end up wrapping our heads around, am I performing well? And you totally miss the experience. It's terrible what we're doing in the bedroom, but you take that outside of the bedroom, we're doing the same thing in life. Am I performing well? And you're missing before you know it, life's going to have passed you by, and you're going to blink and you're going to be 85 years old. You're like, shit, I missed this whole experience. Yeah.
Wow. Well, I guess we're winding down a little bit, Jon. You know what I would like to hear from you, Matthew? It's like having had all these experiences, how would you define success now? Like how would you define success?
I want to say one thing first, and I don't know if there'll be time for it. But I was sitting here thinking about, I'm just some guy that's came on your show for the first time, and you two have been running the show for some time. And you have people that love to listen to you and care about what you have to say. And instead of me answering, I would love, if there's time for you to answer, how you two find your own inner teacher and what helps you. Because what you have to say holds more weight than me. I'm just on here one time. You guys have been building this. So, I'm happy to answer your question too. But
oh no, please, I meditate. Like I sit, I meditate, I breathe, I embody. In the sense of like I am physically active, which helps to release a lot of those Brunos and the fucking feelings that come with Brunos, right? And just really just getting quiet and being still, and just that's the way I get in touch. Cold showers are big help to me because it kind of gives me a jolt of, wakes me up, but also it gets me in touch with my Bruno, and for sure. And then I also
see Lindsay shaking her head against the cold shower. She's like, hell no,
someday, Lindsay, someday. But I think it's, but then also my inner teacher helps me go out and allows me to be the student for other people as well. So I am constantly learning. I am constantly trying to, develop more self-mastery, and then taking those practices and just chipping away a little bit every day, trying to calm myself down, so I can just be a better person for myself, and therefore I can be a better person for other people. But it's just really meditation and breathing and being physical are my practices that help me to just keep fresh and keep listening to that inner voice.
Will, I can hear so much art and truth in what you just said. Like it landed. That was very real.
Thanks, man. Yeah, fuck, man. I mean, I just thought of my meditation today. It's like, it's just like being there. I like getting still, especially in this city.
It's critical, man. Like, and that's the one thing. So one, I will echo a lot of what Will said, probably not as eloquently, but I feel that, taking time to push the pause button, right? I think so many of us, if you kind of envision life as a remote control, so many of us are living on that rewind button and kind of looking back at things that happened yesterday and ruminating on that. I think reminiscing about the past is great. I'm all for thinking about and remembering the past. But when we ruminate on stuff that we screwed up, yesterday, 2 weeks ago, 2 years ago, 20 years ago, that's where we definitely get lost. And then the fast forward button is the other side of that. Is like we're looking 2 weeks down the road, 2 years down the road, 20 years down the road, instead of living in the now and, living on that play button, if you will. But then the other side of that play button is the pause, right? Just taking a pause. Like in this day and age, we are inundated with information, and we feel that, this whole episode is about getting to that next rung on that ladder. We feel that if we stop, then we're going to miss an opportunity. But more often than not, when we stop, we're actually seeing more, feeling more. And quite often we see that next opportunity is not actually what we want, not actually what we need. Yes. So I think the pausing, cannot stress that enough. Pausing in your life, whether it's meditating, maybe meditating is not for you. I'd love to encourage everyone who listens to this to meditate. But if meditating is not your thing, just taking a step, maybe scheduling rather than having back to back Zoom calls. I can't tell how many people I talk to every day. They're like, "Oh, I've been in back to back Zoom calls all day." Well, that's your own fault. Honestly, that's your own fault. You maybe schedule 50-minute Zoom calls instead of 1 hour Zoom calls. Schedule 50 minutes so that you have 10 minutes in between each, so that you can pause and breathe. And so pausing is definitely a huge inner teacher for me. And then, funny enough, the next one is actually an external teacher, but it forces me to turn inwards, is being a father. My kids will often point out my blind spots to me, and then I'll be like, "Oh shit, my 5-year-old just said something hugely profound, and I need to take a step back and process that." So maybe they kind of shine a light on that blind spot, and then I turn inwardly and look, really get curious about it, and those are mine.
Oh man, like so much in what you all said was like a message of internal reflection, spaciousness, stillness,
getting quiet.
Yeah, getting quiet, and then openness, like openness to look, openness to listen to what you're hearing, whether it's from yourself or your children, who you have your own coaches and support in your home.
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
And when you asked my question, or the question about my personal vision of success, well, what's beautiful about what you two said is, whether someone's listening to this and they're like, you know what, I don't care so much about the work I do in the world. I just want to have a lot of money. If that's where you're at, cool. That's what you want. These things can still support you. The stillness, the openness, the silence. Or if you're at the place where you're like, I really want to have an impact in the world, same things apply. Or if you're like, you know what, I'm more about just who I'm being on a daily basis, on a minute by minute basis, same things can still apply. And I just love the universality, and also how you both made it your own. Like you have your own unique way of those themes, and that's what's beautiful.
Amen. And the three of us hear that. The three of us here live that, and our listeners, they're all going to have their own individual stories, their own individual pictures of success. So yeah, I love that you flipped that on us. So thank you for it's rare that we have a guest kind of flip the script on us and turn us into the guest for a brief moment of the episode, but I appreciated that. So thanks, Matt.
Yeah, likewise.
All right. Well,
you guys have been building something incredible here, and so
we're excited about it.
It's important to hear what you have to say.
No, thank you. Yeah, it's been fun. I really appreciate it. Thanks for noticing and thanks for listening. And and it's like I think, and in this case with the show, as far as a teacher, like Jon and I are each other teachers in this way. And then there's also like this another teacher out there just wanting to just a little bit of improvement, a little bit like work a little bit, add this, do this, try this, take that risk, this and that. And it's just like we're growing something together, and it's just been, there's like this third force, that's part of this process as well. And Lindsay's part of this as well. That we're just, and I think it might be just the need to help from a place of passion and see men and all people be a little bit happier, a little bit healthier. And how can we make that, that's kind of our guiding force, our teacher that in a lot of regards is waiting to be discovered, I
bet that offers you a lot of energy, a lot of inspiration.
It does.
Yeah, it does.
Being connected to that.
Yeah, to do this every week, it's like, it's no small task, but it's just like, I never feel like it's a pain in the ass. It's just like something that we just want. It's like, yes, go, keep going. And we're not even talking about success. We're not making a fucking dime off this podcast. Right?
We're losing money.
You know what I mean? Yeah, we're losing money. Right. We do get, some fruits of our labor that come from other places out there, like, our retreats and stuff like that. But, but it's not even, it just feels great. It just, when you're living in a contribution to other people, and that's that, like, kind of, that's that be thing we talked about in the beginning. We want to be a force of good in the world. So we're doing these things, and eventually we'll have we have so much already, so much to be grateful for. All the people that give us continual, comments and, reviews and come on our retreats and connect with us in meaningful ways. It's like, that's, like, I don't think there could be a real dollar amount that can satisfy what I feel in my heart when we receive those kind of messages and those kind of, touch points from people that are having an impact with the show. So thanks for noticing that.
Yeah, for sure.
And I bet that energy fuels your lives beyond this.
Oh, absolutely. We're always looking out for, like, maybe this topic. He'll text me, he's like, we got to do a show on this. I'm like, all right, let's do a fucking show on that. And it's like,
poor Will, man.
Oh, dude.
Getting texts all the time. I said, poor Will, you're getting texts from me all the time.
Same.
So,
but that's the thing. We rally around this. It's not even, it's a physical entity. We don't have a fucking studio. We're here online, with microphones and computers. But it works. It's been fun.
Yeah, it works. Well, hey, I'm not going to turn this into a patting ourselves on the back episode for too much longer, but it's good. It's good to do every once in a while. But yeah. For Matt, I know before we hit record, you mentioned a guide that you were going to maybe offer to our audience. I'd love to just touch on that real quick, and then for our audience, how can they find you? What's the best way for them to get a hold of you?
Yeah, across this entire journey that I just shared, from when I was 18 and I put the bullet in my head, to college and to corporate, and I didn't get into my travels and work today, but all the way up to this point, and actually even just going back to that moment in the Philippines to make it specific, the most challenging parts, two pieces for me always, were finding new clarity that was aligned with what felt like who I am, based on what I knew to be me at the time, at the moment. And so from that, and from this near 2 decades of walking this path, that is the central theme of my work, is helping people create this clarity within themselves, finding their teacher. And so I turned part of the methodology that I use into a free guide that people can use, like right now, for 15 minutes, to sit down and say, okay, I'm trying to get clarity on this thing, and I'm trying to find the answer in myself to get me some movement. And that's what it's all about. And so in the show notes, it's matthoganworldwide.com/clarity. Go to that link, click it, download it, and try it. Try it for 15 minutes. If you get a little ways, maybe not real far, give yourself another 15 minutes. Do it a few times. Kind of like my story of writing in the Philippines. You will uncover something if you'll continue to have these crucial conversations with yourself. And if you want to reach me, you can reach me through my website,
Awesome.
And your website is matthoganworldwide.com?
Correct.
Is that correct?
There it is.
Yeah, matthoganworldwide.com, everybody. So, John.
I've actually got it open in the background because I wanted to make sure that I at least had some good references to start the conversation. But this has been a really easy conversation with you, Matt, and loved everything you had to share here. And I know our audience is going to benefit from it. That said, for our audience, if you guys have liked what you've heard from Matt, check him out at matthoganworldwide.com. And then Lindsay, our EA, will make sure some of this stuff that we've covered today is in the show notes to include Matt's guide. But if you've liked today's episode, share it. Share it with your friends, your family, your work colleagues, whomever you know that may need to hear this. Maybe and you have seen someone in your life climbing that ladder incessantly, and every time they get to the next rung, all they're doing is asking what's next. And maybe this episode can help them to find some type of inner peace, some type of sense of fulfillment internally. So it's been great talking with you, Matt. Thank you very much. And we'd be honored to have you back on the show another time to discuss this more, because it sounds like there's so much more to Matt Hogan than what we've uncovered here in the last hour and 5 minutes. So it's been awesome. Any closing words, Will, and then obviously turn it back over to you, Matt.
I think just that last thing you said about like climbing the rung between the show we did earlier and this one. I had a really good friend. He's like one of my best friends. He calls me. He's like a great guy, broker here in New York. He goes, Will, I just made the biggest deal in my life. It was a $6.5 million property. I made $190,000. One check, $190,000. And I was like, so how long, my friend, is it going to take you when you start complaining about money again? He's like, to just be another couple of days, another couple of weeks. And I'm just like, oh. Yeah. It's like, if you want to chase the money dragon, the dragon's going to keep chasing you. So
that's right. And turn it finally over to you, Matt, for any closing words that you may have.
I was going to say, you talked about having me on again. I was going to say, add me to that text thread with Will, and let's see what ideas we bounce around. Maybe we have a conversation, an actual real life, internal, crucial conversations.
There you go.
Session. But
watch what you ask for, man. You may get a lot of texts.
Yeah, come on our retreat, Matt. Retreat on May 18th to 21st, everybody.
I set it up at the very beginning. I said, this is going to be a fun conversation, and this was a blast. So, the last thing I'll add is just wherever anyone is at, if you will just take the time to consider what would be a crucial conversation with yourself, the conversations you're not having with you at this point in your life. If you can just start to identify what some of those will be, and then actually give yourself a little bit of space to talk to yourself in a new way, you'd be amazed what can really start to open up if you'll just give yourself that little bit.
Yeah.
Gotta pause. Awesome. Yeah. Well, thanks, Matt. Thank you to our listeners, and until next time, peace.
Thanks. Peace, guys. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you for joining us today. We hope you walk away with some new tools and insights to guide you on your life journey. New episodes are being published every week, so please join us again for some meaningful discussion. For more information, please check out mentalkingmindfulness.com.